Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Everyday Trader. Hopefully all you everyday traders are out there making money in this bullish market we've had. Well, bullish I guess until the last couple days, but just coming off all-time highs on the S&P and markets are heading into our fourth quarter rally. Looking forward to the end of the year. I'm jumping forward already. Sorry, Eric, how are you?
Excellent.
It's good to be with you. Good to be with you. We've got some fun stuff we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to put the disclaimer out there before we start talking about it that we may offend some of you today. If you, this is not,
Content may not be suitable for all audiences.
yeah, not that we're not going to do anything explicit or anything, but what we are going to show you is that there's a trade right now, uh, betting
We
on a
can play it
certain
on both sides. But
betting on a certain candidate to win the Republican, betting on a certain Republican candidate to win the presidency.
well, it could go either way. I mean, the odds right now are in the direct. So listen, those of you that know us, I hope you know that we make explicit efforts to not be political, but we have to talk about politics, okay? So it can quickly devolve into an ugly mess of family hating family and whatever else. It's very emotional for people. And I didn't tell you this yesterday, but I thought we might get some phone calls from the Options Animal Daily Market Update because there were some people who don't know the rules, and there was a lot of name calling and discussion that I had to shut down and said, "Listen, this is about it's about making money, about protecting yourself, taking advantage of opportunity, recognizing." So from that perspective, I ask that everybody keep an open mind. I mean, feel free to share your opinion on who you think is a better candidate or not. I happen to think we have two terrible choices. I'm very disappointed that in our entire political system that this is the situation that we have. And it seems like it's been that way for the past three or four elections. So it's not been, it is what it is. But there is significant money that is being wagered in multiple ways on the outcome of this election. Probably the first thing to talk about, and some of you might have seen or heard about Polymarket, which is a offshore place where traders not in the United States can wager on various outcomes. And the poly market outcomes are crazy. Like one of those things last when I was looking at it yesterday was will Donald Trump be on the Joe Rogan show? And the odds were 92%. This was yesterday, I think yesterday or Sunday, and that's come to fruition. He is going to be on the Joe Rogan show on Friday. Which will Kamala go on Rogan? 16% chance. So you can bet on all kinds of stuff. But the biggest market right now is this presidential election winner, and you can place a wager. If you bet 62.8 cents, you'll win $1 on Donald Trump winning. And you can see these numbers here. And right now there is $2.3 billion. Of course, it is illegal for Americans to be doing this, unless, of course, well, I don't know. I don't want to say unless, of course. Polymarket says they are making attempts to make sure that they verify that there's not Americans betting on this. But if you have a crypto account, which is decentralized and anonymous, I don't know how you just check a
Yeah.
box and say I'm outside the US, maybe use a VPN. There's significant money that's being traded here, and I think it's worthwhile mentioning this one guy. Oh yeah, Freddie 999 or Quad 9 is getting a lot of attention. You probably see him in the press. This guy's value of his positions, which are all one way or another voting on betting on Trump winning, $18.6 million this guy has
So he's
wagered.
this guy is the new Roaring Kitty, maybe.
Freddie 99 Quad 9. Everybody wants to
Maybe
know.
it is Roaring Kitty.
And maybe it is Roaring Kitty. It could be. It's a crypto bro, that's for sure. So there's this guy's got some serious bets, and the genesis of this conversation that we're having with you right now came from an email over the weekend. I think I told you, David Kotok reached out to me and said, "Hey, can we talk? I know you know a lot about options, and are you aware of what's happening on Polymarket? I said, yeah. And he said, is there a trade? And David, as you know, is probably not the kind of guy that's gonna. I mean, he's a bond trader. But he's very, very, very smart, and he knows everybody. But he said, is there a trade for somebody out there if they wanted to try and maybe get risk-free arbitrage? And that was kind of the path that we went down. He said, is it possible somebody could be wagering on Polymarket and then also wagering using options? And what David mentioned to me was that he said, if you look at the stock price of DJT, this is the Donald J. Trump Media Company, which fundamentally, I don't know that the company has any value. Right. Right.
Well, and
What
we talked about this just the last recording we did. If you remember right, you and I discussed the DJT abnormal volumes that are there right now. They have normal amounts of implied volatility. So I thought it was interesting that David reached out to you after you and I had discussed the huge implied volatility in the options market and how there's got to be a trade there.
Yeah, if we look at the price action here of DJT, it aligns pretty well with this portion of the trade. If we go back and I don't know, I don't know, you can quickly look at 6 months here, but I don't know how to change this to 6 months. But if you go back to about July, that red portion of the trade of the chart looks very similar. Where I got too many charts up to
There it
this one.
is.
This is DJT here. So this is 6 months. They lay right on top of each other. In fact, you know, as I mentioned, I put a tweet out on this. If you are on Twitter, Eric714, and I took the DJT price versus the Polymarket odds. There's an R squared of 83.9%. And that is very, very close correlation. So those odds are related. And David's question was, do you think DJT is a proxy for Donald Trump odds? And I think it is. And maybe this is the way that Americans who can't bet in Polymarket can bet. There are other markets like predicted, which is mostly for academics, and you're really limited as to how much you can do. And then there's the IO electronic markets, IEM. The Tippy College has done some stuff out there, some research with academics. And the theory behind it is that if there's a betting market, the odds, oh, this is a good one for you to talk about, is that if there's a betting market, there's a philosophy and people like Thaler's book, Super Predictors, have identified that if you can create a market where people will place money, it does a very good job of predicting outcomes. And this is exactly the theory behind sports betting. And Greg, at the beginning of the MLB season, before the MLB season, what what teams had the best odds of making it to the World Series?
At the beginning of the year, the best odds were the Dodgers, had the best odds. The Phillies, had really good odds. Um,
Wasn't there an American League team that was
there was, I'm trying to remember if it was the Rangers. Obviously, the Rangers were the defending champs. But there was another.
was it the Yankees?
Oh, it was the Yankees.
Are you
Yes.
messing with me? So
No.
let me ask you, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah,
Can we talk about something personal here?
sure.
Did you happen to make any
I
sort of wagers on any of this
I
with your own
may I
personal money?
may have at the beginning of the regular season placed a bet on the Dodgers to win the World Series and the Yankees to win the World Series. The Yankees were a better payoff, by the way. I, I'm really torn right now because if the Yankees win, I win more money, but I'm a Dodgers fan. So I'm torn. I'm trying to figure out if I can somehow hedge my bet and make like more like an outsourced upside bet if the Dodgers win, if the Dodgers sweep, maybe I can do another bet right now type of thing that yes, I'm sure I can find that out there. You're right. It is an interesting phenomena, like you said. This arguably call it a study of human behavior. That markets are a study of human behavior. I think it's one of the reasons why I've always been fascinated with markets. Is we we as human beings have a tendency to get greedy when times are good, and we get, to quote Alan Greenspan, we get irrationally exuberant from time to time. And then when we're fearful, we have a tendency to hide and think that the world is going to come to an end, like Bill Ackman said during COVID. That we're driven by emotion, and markets are a perfect place that reflect that emotion. And I think this trade that's going on with Polymarket and this Donald J. Trump, the DJT stock, is a perfect example of the emotion that is surrounding this election, that there is so much volatility and such big bets being placed, that it does create opportunity. And for those of us, and I say us because I've tried to train myself over the years, I know you have as well, to try to control that emotion and to step out of your emotions and say, okay, let's rationally think if there's a trade, and if we can structure some option parameters around it and create arbitrage, as you were mentioning that Kotak was calling you about, that's when you can take advantage of this human phenomena that these markets create, because it can get irrational. And let's be honest, a stock with 300% implied volatility in its options chains, it's irrational. It's 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 exuberant right now. Just as an example, Apple. Apple's, a very volatile company. Everyone, recently there's been news back and forth about Apple. Um, their iPhone sales are slowing down, and then they were doing good. China had good numbers. Now they got a report that came out today that they got a downgrade, that sales are going down, uh Dan Niles was specifically the analyst that came out and talked about his bearishness now with Apple because of both AT&T and Verizon's earnings calls, saying that they're not seeing the upgrade cycles, which of course those are two primary subscribers, how people buy iPhones in the US market. But even with all of the volatility around Apple, you're still only seeing options with 25% implied volatility, 23% implied volatility. That's not
Yeah. So we're talking,
300%.
depending on the expiration series or the options you're looking at, but we're 270, 300, 312, depending on which one you're looking at. But those are astronomical. They are off this planet. And you usually don't see those sort of implied volatilities except for companies that have a binary outcome, like
Yeah.
a drug company who has phase 3 results, and the stock price is either going to go from 30 to 300, or it's going to go to $5, or go to the pink sheets. And you see that happening. And so a couple interesting things. Talking with David, he said, "Can you make a forecast of where the stock would go?" And absolutely. I mean, this stocks are based on option pricing models, and there's different models that are out there. But the general underlying theme behind most of them is that stocks tend to move in a log normal distribution, and if you use the exponents and the right data, you can estimate what is a +1 standard deviation and -1 standard deviation. They are not, the math shouldn't be plus or minus. There's some rules of thumb that people use to calculate by doing like the rule of 16 or the rule of 19 or something like that, dividing that works for low volatility stocks over small movements. But you need to use the right math, and it's you calculate a forward price based on dividends and cost of carry, and then you use basically an exponent with the implied volatility number in there. And on Sunday, when I ran the numbers, and they're a little bit different, they're different every day, but on Sunday, when I ran the numbers, the one standard deviation move up put DJT at $72, and a one standard deviation move down put DJT at $12, which ironically, if you looked at an entire year, that is the 52-week, almost, I mean, uncanny of how close that takes us to the 52-week high was a 79. That was an intraday high. So around $70 looks like what I would call the all-time, the all-time high for sure, but the 52-week high. And then $12 is right down here. And I think that's what's going to happen with DJT. It's either going to be at $70 a share, or it's going to be, and maybe it's 69 or 65 or 60, but it's going to be up here someplace, or it's going to be down here. And especially if you look at this and correlate it to the Polymarket numbers of, if this is 62, so if we add another 30, 40, where does that put us? It definitely puts us up here in this range. So I think we're going to see a binary outcome with this stock as it moves closer and closer in the outcome of the election. And I don't, I wish both candidates could lose, but to be honest with you, I wish that there was some way that we can. I wish my dog would win or somebody. I don't know. Maybe I should win or you should win or
No, thanks.
yeah.
I'll pass.
But right now, the trend is your friend, and I not making any sort of adjustments. People tend to arrive at emotional decisions without logic, and they tend to have an opinion and then seek data to support that opinion. This is one of the things Daniel Kahneman really underscored, that most of your decisions are not based on rational thought. Most of it is an emotional position. And for people who make emotional decisions, it's very hard to use logic and rationality to change that. But I implore people to try and be rational here. And so prepare yourself for a potential Donald Trump win, however, whatever you need to do, because the trend is certainly working in that direction. And if you wanted to try and trade, you could try and trade either side. I looked at doing, look, what if I wanted to pick one or the other? And let's say that we do get a reversal. Unfortunately, the options trades to the downside because the implied volatility skews very, very high when it goes low on the stocks. I don't think there's a great bearish trade that are out there. Buying puts or at the money puts right now are about $10. So you could bet on either outcome by buying a put and a call. With the stock at $36, that means you need the stock to move $20 in either direction. And maybe that would work. So if it drops $20, I mean, so at 36, you need it to be down below here. And maybe to the upside if it wins. I think a more interesting trade is if you pick a direction and then do a bull call. So you buy a call and sell a call. And I've done a trade where I bought the 40 and sold the 50. That trade right now is about 250 bucks. If it pays off 750 per contract. So do your own due diligence. Don't take trading advice from me. I'm happy to talk about what I'm doing, but I am in no way telling anybody else what to do. If I look at deploying the same capital on the downside with DJT, assuming that maybe a Harris win, trying to do a similar sort of structure, looking at 30 and 25. That trades about 250 as well, but the payoff is 250. It's almost an even payoff. So I like the 3-to-1 odds of the bullish move. And I do think if we do get, a bullish move that, somewhere around above 50 is where we're going to go, for a number of reasons. So that's, and it's a relatively moderate size bet. It's not going to make or break my portfolio. It'd be good if it pays off and maybe some consolation for something that would make some people unhappy. But I actually had somebody get really upset with me yesterday and during the Options Animal Weekly, and I might have said some stuff that was insensitive, and I apologize if that was you that I was. I'm telling put your big boy pants on and don't get emotional about this. If you can put it behind you, you and I, how you, I live in Illinois, so I can tell you my vote does not matter. So don't, it doesn't matter which way. I already know this entire state is going to be blue, and
And I live in Idaho, and my vote doesn't matter
your vote, your
because
entire state's going to.
my state will vote red.
The truth is, if you this election, as you and I heard when we were in Jackson Hole this summer, and we had a conversation with what was his name? Strategist Dan.
Uh, you
No,
asked me, and I can't tell you now.
yeah, it'll come to me later. An absolutely, I mean, real, very, very well thought out presentation. Um, I mean, I think the election's gonna be okay for markets overall. Um, oh, damn, why can't I remember his name? Um, and it really comes down to seven swing states, and it's 17 counties, literally. If you don't, it's not even those states that matter. If it's the 17 counties that matter, and this election could come down to the matter of just a few 100,000 votes. So for some people, this is your vote is very, very important. And the thing is, if you live in one of those counties, you already know this because you've had people banging on your door and phoning you and texting you. We're all getting texts and messages and emails, but if you live in one of those 17 counties, it has been relentless for you. You probably can't walk down the street without somebody asking you to sign a petition or go vote. And so,
Clifton,
so my point is that if you know, don't let this
Clifton.
get personal for you, or get angry with me. I honestly still don't know how I'm going to vote. So I haven't made a decision. I am a classic undecided and have been traditionally. I get I voted both sides, so I get emails and campaign from everybody. I try to vote for who I think is the best candidate. But
Dan Clifton.
Dan Clifton from Strategas, I mean, really mind blown. But he painted this picture, and of course, you and I have talked about it. You and the 269 to 269. That is so
That's
perverse when you bring that up. That makes me angry, Greg.
it can happen. It and I'm not even this, and I think he was the one that actually first brought this up as a potential. It could come down to actually one county in the entire United States, and it's the county where Warren Buffett lives in Nebraska, in Omaha, Nebraska. Could be the deciding because Nebraska is one of those states that has their electors can split, and so they can have a electoral vote go, three of Nebraska can go to one and one can go to the other. I think Maine is the other state in the country that does that.
So
Um,
somebody asked me, well, what's a reliable source? So the pollsters, a lot of them are, honestly, I think some of the polls are intentionally designed to bias people. Uh,
yeah.
that if they see, hey, it's a landslide one direction, I'm not going to bother voting either way because you think it's a landslide. So it can go both ways. But I think Real Clear Politics is the place to go to get the probably the most non-biased, neutral stuff. I think they have a pretty good reputation. So if you're interested, going here, but don't get obsessed about the odds because when Donald Trump had a probability of winning in 2016 of I think it was like 12% or 10%, and people were saying he won, so the odds were wrong. And Nate Silver did a really good job explaining this. Is like, no, the odds were right. The low probability thing happened. And I used the example of playing craps. And what are the odds of you rolling two ones? So it's
One in
six,
36, right?
1 in 36 chance. So it's a point, it's a 2.7777% chance. So less than 3% chance that you could roll two. And but you roll two and you wouldn't say the odds were wrong. You just say the low probability thing happened. And so the odds right now are in favor of Trump winning. That doesn't mean Kamala won't win. It just, if she does, it means the low probability, the odds right now are going the other way. These are not how people who say odds were wrong say don't really understand odds, in my opinion. But the odds market, there is some other stuff that we can talk about here in the odds market, in the options market. And what other piece of data that I think is important and worth mentioning to people, I said, prepare yourself for a potential Donald Trump win. That's fine. Get your head around that. The other thing is, don't think we're going to understand on election night. The option market on DJT, the most active tends to be like on a Thursday, Friday. So this week, these options, and that's another thing to talk about because DJT is a bit of a meme stock. So like the GME, GameStop, AMC stuff, the what is the Roaring Kitty stuff. That
Yeah.
happens on Thursdays and Fridays. We get massive volume that's going to happen on Thursday and Friday because some weird stuff. But right now, if we look past that, the number one volume and open interest is for the November 15th election, November 15th expiration. And if traders thought that we would know by November 8th, which is the expiration before, that would be the number one week. That would be the number one expiration. But people don't think we're going to know. So we're probably not going to know who won the election until after the 7th. I'm sorry, after the 8th, the expiration Friday the 8th. We probably won't know until after that. We should know by the 15th.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't stretch into December. I know we talked about this last time too. And I hope we don't end up with a similar situation like we had in the 2000 election, where with the Bush Gore election with the hanging chads and that took us
It went
forever.
till January, didn't it? How long
It
did it go?
did. It went until
6 weeks.
January before we knew.
Speaking of
Uh,
January, I was listening to an interview today on, I think on Bloomberg, and they're interviewing somebody from who is responsible for security at the Capitol, and they are beefing up and already, I guess, installing fences and barricades, preparing for what could be an ugly uh, reaction, which will be a sad chapter for this country.
yeah, no, I have to agree with that. And it's to me, I would love to get back to just talking about the markets, but to kind of wrap up the last little discussion part about this is we as investors have to realize we have to wade through this information. It's going to impact our economy. It's going to impact our stocks that we hold, depending on which candidate has different policies. But in the short term, it also creates opportunity. And so don't shun it. Don't thumb your nose at it. Just recognize, what, I've got the opportunity to take advantage of a market right now, that I can help improve my situation, and then I can use my own personal resources to create and fix my community and build up my community of how I want to. I still strongly believe my one political statement that I will say is that I think both of our parties are broken right now.
Yeah.
I think both of them are pushing us against each other, and I think the best way get to take our country back right now is to go local again and to start being, you know, spreading the type of building the type of community that you want to live in, and supporting your local businesses, supporting your local policies, and then from there we'll build out and we'll fix things. But man, I agree. You said it's a sad state of our economy, right? Our sad state of our country right now, and it is. It's sad to see so much hate, um, that is driving people apart from one another right now. And hopefully we can get through this and get to the other side, and then just start talking about things like inflation and CPI and new home sales and things like Tesla earnings.
So last week I was at a Cato Institute event, and the speaker there was a guy named Gene Healy, who recently updated a book that he wrote in 2008. And it's called The Cult of the Presidency: America's Dangerous Devotion to Executive Power. And it really wasn't since I think like it wasn't until World War II that the role of the president started to it was really more administrative and sort of rubber stamping sort of things. In fact, originally the State of the Union was not ever a speech. It was just a report and more of a business sort of a formality report. And the president didn't have all this power. And it wasn't until like really around Hoover that we started giving more and more power. And it's just continued to get to the point where the president probably has too much power, and that's not what the original founders of our country wanted to see. But it seems to be what a lot of people want. Do you? I don't know if you watch some of those original founding father shows when they talk about how, what were we going to call the president? And there were some people that were lobbying for His Majesty, and there's a lot of discussion about what the president, commander in chief um, you know, what we settled on, right? So,
Yep.
but not, it's not royalty, but it sure has sort of gone that direction, and we've given more and more. I happen to be very much anti-federalist when it comes to this. I think we should be giving more power to the states, and like to see movements in that direction because I think that's better for the country overall. But nonetheless, our politics don't matter. It's fun to talk about. I hope I don't insult anybody. I respect everybody. All you, I think you have important opinions, and I think there's some opportunities here. The bigger picture stuff overall, Greg, what do you think is going to happen to the market based on either presidency? Is it?
It's going to go up.
Yeah,
I don't think the presidency is going to matter, to be honest. No,
I think
that doesn't mean it can't impact individual equities and sectors. And so you do have to realize that if we have a Donald J. Trump presidency, it's probably going to be anything related to China is going to struggle. We're going to see more restrictive trade policy. We're going to see oil, energy stocks, and that sector likely get a boon from that. I think if we get a Kamala Harris win, then I think there are other sectors that'll also do well. I think
green energy.
housing stocks will likely go up as we're going to get a boon in housing again. I think there's a lot of sectors that could do really well there. Um, uh,
Defense,
Healthcare. Uh,
healthcare, defense, uh,
um,
your solar companies will
yeah,
do well.
solar companies do well.
I think
So,
net everybody will be happy. Your 401ks, your IRAs are going to be, 6 months from now. I mean, the forecast is, very bullish outlook is going to continue. And traditionally, that's what happens. Right now, the VIX is very volatile and indicating that we're probably going to have something like a 7 or 8% move around the election. And remember, that can be an upward move too. So the high VIX could be bullish.
and
But
and
we're
and probably the main reason why I don't think it really matters is neither one of them have anything to do with the options volume on Nvidia. So that's really the only thing that moves the S&P right now.
Is it okay?
Is what's moving the market is the options data or the options volume on Nvidia right now. There's my conspiracy theory of the day.
And we didn't even get a chance to talk about anything else. And Tesla up $20 a share right now. So yeah,
Beat earnings,
beat earning.
margins increasing. Those are good things.
Never bet against Elon Musk. I guess
Anytime you see a margin increase, that's a good thing to buy. That's a good stock to buy when they're increasing margins. So,
you want to talk about yield curve later or not? I
uh,
think we did a long enough show here. So
we've done a long enough show. Let's wrap up. We'll talk about the yield because it hasn't inverted yet. But yeah, I think yields are maybe putting a little pressure on stocks, but we're just off all-time highs too. That could be the next shoe to drop, maybe, proverbially after the election, but we'll see how things go for the next couple weeks. And maybe we'll do another one next week right before Halloween. Do a Halloween special. Trade everyday trader. We
what's
can
your
we can put
costume?
Halloween costumes on.
What's your Halloween costume going to be, Greg?
Um, I'm probably gonna be watching the World Series on Halloween, so probably wearing a Dodgers hat and maybe a jersey.
Uh, I'll go with Steve Bartman.
There you go.
I actually, after that the Bartman event, I went to a party and there were three other Steve Bartmans there.
Nice.
I think it was the best one though. I had a green
Poor
turtleneck,
Bartman.
the Walkman headphones on. All right. Good talking to you, my friend.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks everybody for listening to us. See y'all at the next one.
Talk to you later.